Hi, my name's Paul and welcome to Building Blocks English. In today's lesson, we're going to continue looking at relative clauses. Specifically, we'll be talking about reduced relative clauses and participle clauses. In our previous videos, we've seen relative clauses generally, defining and non-defining, and we've also seen relative clauses with prepositions. So, if you would like to review them, please watch these videos first. But for now, let's have a look at an example of a relative clause. Here we have one. The house, which or that Jack built, is bigger than mine. This is a relative clause talking about a thing, the house. That's why we're using which or that. Now, in this relative clause, we have the subject Jack, the verb built, and where is the object? That's right. The relative pronoun which or that is the object. And remember, when the relative pronoun is the object, we can choose to omit the pronoun. So, we're familiar with the concept of omission already, but there are other ways we can make the relative clause smaller or reduce the relative clause. And we can do this by omitting the pronoun and an auxiliary be. For example, the people who are working hard are building the house. In this relative clause, we have the relative pronoun who functioning as the subject, then an auxiliary be, and then a verb ing, making this a present continuous relative clause. In this case, I can choose to reduce the relative clause by omitting or removing both the relative pronoun who and the auxiliary be, like this. The people working hard are building the house. Another way I can do this is in this example. The house, which or that was built by Jack, is bigger than mine. This is similar to our previous example at the top, but notice in this case that while which or that is the subject, we're then using auxiliary be and a verb 3 or past participle because this relative clause is now passive. In this case, once again, I can remove the pronoun which or that and the be to create another reduced relative clause. The house, built by Jack, is bigger than mine. Finally, we have this example. The house, which is on my street, is huge. In this case, once again, the relative pronoun which is functioning as the subject. And then I have my be. In this case, be is the main verb before the prepositional phrase on my street. However, once again, I can reduce it and remove the subject relative pronoun and the be to make the house on my street is huge. So, all of these are known as reduced relative clauses because I have reduced the relative clause. I've made it smaller. We can also call them adjectival participle clauses. So, let's talk about participle clauses and what they are. To start off with, there are three types of participle clause. Firstly, we have the present participle, which is our verb ing, which we use in continuous tenses. Secondly, we have the past participle, or the verb 3, which we will know from perfect tenses, or, as we use them in reduced relative clauses, in passive voice. Finally, there is the perfect participle, which we form by using having, a verb ing form of the verb have, and then a verb 3, or past participle. All of these can form participle clauses, which are clauses we use to describe the subject of the main clause. So in this way, they function like a long adverb or a long adjective. For that reason, we have two types of participle clause. Adverbial participle clauses, like this one, working hard, the people are building the house. And here, we can see that the participle clause, working hard, comes at the start of the sentence, like an adverb, Or we can have the adjectival form. The people working hard are building the house, where the participle clause is in the middle of the main clause, functioning like a reduced relative clause. So let's see some more examples of each of these. So we're going to start with the present participle, the verb ing, which we use for active sentences. For example, as an adverbial, drinking a cup of tea, Jack read the morning paper. So, drinking a cup of tea is an active action. That is why I've chosen to use the verb ing, present participle. And here, it's the adverbial form, but, of course, I can put it in the middle of the clause to make the adjectival form. Jack, drinking a cup of tea, read the morning paper. Here's another example of an adverbial. Sleeping during the movie, Sally missed the final scenes. And as the adjectival, Sally, sleeping during the movie, missed the final scenes. In both of these examples, the participle clause, sleeping during the movie, is describing Sally, what she was doing. It's giving us more information about Sally, the subject of the main clause. Okay, but what if our participle clause is not active? What if it's passive? In that case, we're going to use a verb 3 or past participle. For example, as an adverbial, presented by Paul, the video is about participle clauses. In this case, it's passive. We can see that because the action is being done by somebody else, by Paul or me, right? And it is describing the subject, the video. Once again, I can also make this adjectival. The video, presented by Paul, is about participle clauses. Another example, enjoyed by everyone, the movie was very successful. Or, the movie, enjoyed by everyone, was very successful. Once again, the participle clause is giving us more information about the subject, the movie. Our final form is the perfect participle, having plus verb 3. As in this example, having made the cake, Karini served it to her friends. Or, as the adjectival, Karini, having made the cake, served it to her friends. So I can use an adverbial or an adjectival form for the perfect participle. However, the adjectival reduced relative clause form is possible, but it's not very common, not very natural. When we use this form, having plus verb 3, we typically always put it at the front as an adverbial. So, having made the cake, Karini served it to her friends. This is a lot more common, and this is the one you should use. So, this perfect participle is an active participle. But why is it different from the regular present participle, the verb ing? Why can I not just say, making the cake? Karini served it to her friends. What is the difference between these two examples? So let's look at a timeline. This is now, and in the past, the cake was made. Karini made the cake. And then after that, at a later time, she served the cake to her friends. So, by using the perfect participle, as we know with perfect tenses, I am expressing a connection of time periods. One action happened before another action. Because participle clauses don't give us this information about when the actions happened, if I want to distinguish that one action happened first, then I need to use having plus verb 3, the perfect participle. Because in the second example, making the cake, Karini served it to her friends, I think that this means that she made the cake and she served it to her friends at the same time. But how is it possible to make a cake and serve it at the same time? It's not. So in this case, I have to use the perfect to show the difference in time. Okay, so these are the three types of participle clause, And they're very useful, but why? Why do I want to use them? Basically, they're more common in writing, and they make our writing more efficient and more sophisticated. So this is really great for academic writing, for English exams. For literature, you will probably see it if you do a lot of reading. If I want to make my own, how do I do it? What if I already have two existing clauses? Can I turn them into participle clauses? Well, let's ask some questions. Firstly, is there a conjunction between the two existing clauses? If there is, then you should remove the conjunction. If there is not, don't worry, let's continue to our next step. Secondly, are the subjects of both clauses the same? If they are, if yes, you can remove the first subject. If they are not the same, well, we can't have a participle clause. The subject of the participle clause must always be the same as the subject of the main clause. But if the subjects are the same, we can ask ourselves the final question, and is the verb active and happening at the same time? In that case, turn the verb into a verb ing, a present participle. Or is the verb passive? If it's passive, turn it into a verb 3, past participle. And is the verb active and happening before the other action? In this case, you turn it into having plus verb 3 to make the perfect participle. Now, in all of these cases, if the verb has an auxiliary be attached to it, don't forget to remove the auxiliary be as well. Okay, so let's look at an example and see if we can ask ourselves these questions to create a participle clause. So, he was running to the bus stop and he tripped over. Firstly, is there a conjunction in this sentence? Yes, we have the conjunction and, so we can remove this. Secondly, are the subjects the same? We have he was running and then we have he tripped over. The subjects are the same, so I can remove the first he. Finally, the third question. What is the verb doing? Is it active or passive? In this case, was running is obviously an active verb. So I can turn it into a verb ing. Fortunately, I already have running as a verb ing, so all I need to do is remove the be, and I have my participle clause. Running to the bus stop, he tripped over. And don't forget to include a comma to separate the adverbial participle clause from the main clause. Okay, here's another example. I studied at university, then I got a job. Is there a conjunction? Yes, we have the conjunction then, so I can remove this. Are the subjects the same? I studied, I got, yes, so I can remove the first I. Now, what is the verb doing? I studied at university. This is an active verb, but is it happening at the same time, or is it happening before the other action? Well, the conjunction we removed, then, implies that there was a time sequence. So this suggests that we need to use the perfect participle, having plus verb 3, to show that time sequence. So we would have, having studied at university, I got a job. Here's another example. The movie, which was directed by Spielberg, was good. Is there a conjunction? Yes, we're using the relative pronoun which as a conjunction in this example. So I can remove which. Are the subjects the same? Well, which is referring to the original subject, the movie, so yes, and we've already removed it, so that's good. Now, what is the verb doing in the participle clause? Which was directed by Spielberg. So we have an auxiliary be and a verb 3 directed, then a by plus agent. This is passive, so this is going to be a passive participle clause. All I need to do now is remove the be, and I have my adjectival participle clause or my reduced relative clause. The movie, directed by Spielberg, was good. Another example. We sat at home and waited for the rain to stop. Is there a conjunction? Yes, we have and, so we can remove and. Are the subjects the same? Firstly, we have we sat at home, then waited for the rain to stop. The second clause has no subject, but we can assume it's the same one. In this case, we remove the first subject and we move it to the second clause. Finally, what's the verb doing? Sat at home. This is an active verb, right? And it's happening at the same time as in the other clause. But it's not already a verb ing, so what do I need to do? Very simple. I turn the verb sat into sitting to make it a verb ing. So, sitting at home, we waited for the rain to stop. Now, for one final example, if you cook the meat slowly, it tastes better. Does this sentence have a conjunction? Yes, if. So I can remove if. Now for my second question, are the subjects the same? Well, the first clause has you, and the second clause has it, which is referring to the meat, the object of the previous clause. These are not the same subjects, so I can't make a participle clause. Or maybe I can, but I will have to manipulate the original sentence. So I will have to make the original sentence passive by taking the object, the meat, and turning it into the subject. If the meat is cooked slowly by you, it tastes better. So now the meat and it are the same, so I can remove the meat from my first clause, and obviously later I will change it to the meat. I can also remove by you because it's obvious we don't always need to use by plus agent in passive voice. And then I can remove the be, and what do I have? Cooked slowly, the meat tastes better. So, if you want to create a participle clause, these are the steps you should follow. And yes, the subject should always be the same, but if they are not, there are ways that we can manipulate the original clause in order to make it work, as we can see in this example. So, in this video we talked about reduced relative clauses and participle clauses. If you would like more information, please follow the link in the video description below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please come back for the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, tell all your friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye.